We're going to get you if you come to Polk County.
Primary purpose is to find deviants that want to prey on our children, that want to attack our children, that stalk our children online. And when you look at the 7 that are listed in the center there, the child sexual predators, understand that 5 of them traveled, 2 of them only used the computer. We'll tell you a little bit more about them in just a second. But 5 of those folks came to an undercover home thinking they were going to engage a child in sex. I can tell you our detectives saved lives because it wasn't a real child. It was a detective pretending to be a very young child. But they thought they were showing up to sexually batter, to rape a child. Our detectives cast a wide net out upon the ocean, and what we brought in was child predators, deviants, victims of human trafficking, and Johns. 124 arrests. But listen to this. This group of people here had 443 previous felony charges, 571 previous misdemeanor charges, and of those charges, 51 were violent felonies or violent crimes. So at the end of the day, if you think we just happened to drive by a monastery and pick up a bunch of innocent folks, you're wrong. That's not what happened here. 2 of these victims or suspects brought their very young children to the operation. Did you hear me? They brought their babies with them. A 3-year-old and I think a 5-year-old on one occasion. They brought their little children while they turned tricks. They brought narcotics. They brought a firearm. And I'm going to start with folks who are the worst of the worst of the worst, and that's these deviant child sexual predators. This guy didn't travel, but he communicated over the internet to what he thought was a 13-year-old female, and he was preparing to travel. He's retired. His name's William Stimmerman. He said he was fixed, so don't worry, you can't get pregnant. He was married. That's right, the guy's married. He told this little 13-year-old, and he thought he was conversing with the 13-year-old, wear something sexy and easy to get out of. Did you hear me? That's the communication he was having with a child. You think there's a problem here? We do. Of course, then there's always Matthew Minardi. He's a waiter. He lives in Palm Harbor. 13-year-old female is who he was communicating with, he thought. He sent nude photographs of himself. And he said that I was just stupid when our colleagues from Pinellas County went to arrest him, and he confessed. He also used a computer. He wanted to set up an environment where he and another adult could come have sex with a child. That's what he fantasized about online. Everyone else I'm going to talk about traveled. They showed up. That's right, they showed up at the undercover house, knocked on the front door, thinking they were about to engage a child in sex. How about Benjamin Castaneda? He's from Orlando. He works as a waiter at Simpson's Restaurant at Universal Studios. He's got a bachelor's degree in journalism. He sent nude photos of himself. I guess when he's sitting down in lockup, since he's got a bachelor's degree in journalism, he can prepare his own press release so that he can share with everyone that a journalism degree will help you write better after you're arrested if you want to tell your story about why you travel to have sex with a 13-year-old child. And then there's Demetrius Gonzalez. He's from Davenport. He's a dental assistant. He thought he was going to meet up with and have sex with a 14-year-old boy. He brought, and I'll clean this up so we can use it on television, equipment with him to use on the boy. He said he likes to think of it as a pool. You see, he normally stays down in the adult end of the pool, but occasionally he goes to the kiddie end of the pool. Did you hear me? So he likes to go to the kiddie end of the pool. Now that's not all. This guy's got a real screw loose someplace. He said in the past he was a counselor for a children's camp called Integrity in Burlingame, New York. Demetrius Gonzalez. Then there's Pierre Alvarez. He's from Davenport. He's unemployed. He lives with his parents. He rode his bike to the undercover location to have sex with what he thought was a 13-year-old girl. He sent photographs online of himself nude. He talked ugly things about sex. And he is now locked up in the county jail. Anthony Gavin, you know, we had a culture change for Anthony. He had a news flash. He's a server at a restaurant. He traveled to meet a 14-year-old boy. He's married. I know his wife's proud. But he said, quote, "I don't want to be labeled a pedophile." Well, if you don't want to be labeled a pedophile, why are you showing up to have sex with a 14-year-old boy? Scary, scary thing. And of course, then there's Joshua Bryant. Joshua Bryant's from Brandon, Florida. He works at a convenience store. He came to meet a 14-year-old boy. He lives with his grandmother. He said he's attracted to 13 and 14-year-old boys, and here's his fantasy. He wants to keep them at his house. He wants them to stay in his room. He said, "I'll hide you." He said, "You know, when your family reports you missing tomorrow, I'll have you hidden in my room." That gives me pause. He didn't go so far as to say he would shackle him or imprison him, but he made it abundantly clear that he would hide this 13, 14-year-old little boy from his parents when they reported him as missing. He is dangerous, folks. This is his fantasy. This is what he was sharing. This is what he thought he was communicating to this 14-year-old boy. He was preparing this child to be hidden away in his home. It's only a small step from a fantasy to reality. And how could you have an undercover operation without a pastor? There you go. Robert Johns, he's a pastor at New Horizons Church in Haines City. He lives in Mulberry. He also works at a local insurance company, and he solicited sex. I don't know what you say about that, other than Jesus ain't going to be happy. Rodney Davis, 56, from Winter Garden. He's a Disney security guard. He's married, been married 27 years. We charged him with soliciting. He brought him a Viagra pill, but he didn't have a prescription for it, so that's another criminal charge. Have Viagra will travel? Okay, here's what you're not going to believe. Maybe you're not going to believe any of it. It's hard to believe any of this. I mean, people who live in what I call the normal world, this guy walked up to the front door of this home in a neighborhood on a cool evening, buck naked. Now, if you don't know the difference in naked and buck naked means you're not even wearing your socks. He didn't have a stitch of clothes on, but he was carrying a shirt. I guess in case of an emergency. Then there's 44-year-old Tommy Gainey. And of course, what's an undercover operation without a youth sports coach from Orlando? Lives in Windermere. He is a youth soccer coach, and he was charged with soliciting as well. His name's Kirkland Millette. And then you got old William Earl Stocks. He's 57. He's from Tallahassee. He is a manager at Woodman's of the World Insurance, and he was in the Orlando area to present American flags to children at the Snowball Express event at one of the Disney hotels. Then there's Clint Bagdon from Winter Garden. He's in IT sales for a Fortune 500 company. He arrived driving his Porsche. He left his wife at the Mount Dora Christmas parade. He said he had to go get a haircut. They told me not to say any more. But we don't normally give haircuts at the county jail, except, like once a month on Friday. If he hangs around in the jail long enough, we'll get him his haircut. But I just imagine he may not need a haircut after his wife skins him. Then there's Bavik Ramba. He's from Orlando. He owns the Super 8 in Old Town in Kissimmee. We charged him with soliciting. He's married. And he made the statement, which is true: I worked so hard to keep prostitution out of my hotel. I worked so hard, yet I'm here at a prostitution operation.
I asked myself, when was this operation a success? When they caught that first predator, that's when it was a success?